Ready?
Ready? What are you most excited about right now?
Living my dream, and that what I imagined in my past 3 years, 4 years ago is now my reality.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite pastime?
My favorite pastime is sitting by the ocean or a long walk in the woods on a path or at a park.
What was your best performance ever in a basketball game?
Oh my gosh. We were playing Collins Hill High School in Georgia, and there was this tall girl, and I was so intimidated just because of the height, and I killed it. I killed it because I just imagined that she was not there, like she was just this piece of glass. And I was so proud of myself because at one point I thought I couldn't do it. I thought we were going to lose. I thought I was going to suck. And then to my surprise, I was actually good and killed it.
Nice. What position did you play?
Power forward and center.
Okay. Holding down the fort on D.
That's right. Body to body.
Outside of your own or any of your clients' books, what are the top 2 books that you think everyone should read?
Ooh. Millionaire Messenger by Brendon Burchard. And, ooh, that's a tough question. The Third Circle Theory.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yes. What's the author's name? I usually have it in my purse, Mark. But the Third Circle Theory talks about the 3 people as you're moving along your journey, about, you know how they say who you hang around is what you become. Mm-hmm. My mother used to always say when I was in high school, association brings on the simulation. And so I really believe that is true. And so what that book has done for me, the Third Circle Theory, is helped me to aim higher, because I think the people that I was around or I allowed to be in my space, I was aiming low but thinking that was high. But when you start exposing yourself and realizing that and making the changes, you open yourself up to meet awesome dynamic people that can expose you to so much other things, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was aiming so low and I thought that was great. With Brendon Burchard on The Millionaire Messenger, in that book he talks about his life during college, how he was in a car accident, how he was watching motivational speeches and watching Tony Robbins and different things like that and say, I want that. But he believes in, you have messengers, and I believe that strangers make you rich, not your friends, not your family. And so get comfortable with speaking to the person next to you, saying hi and this and the other. And he talks about his millionaire messengers who pour into him selflessly in order for the greater good of the people. And so I kind of parallel my service or my servitude to the people and the people who are my circle of influence the same exact way. And you never know who you may meet, who is your millionaire messenger or that stranger that takes you to the next level.
You brought up so many amazing points there, and I think we've all heard that before in terms of who we surround ourselves with. We're a reflection or a combination of the 5 people or the 3 people, 10 people, whatever it may be. But it's a great opportunity for everyone listening right now. Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself around, spending most of your time with? Do they inspire you? Do infuse positive energy into your life? And definitely recommend that, as you mentioned. The other piece that I thought was really interesting that you said was to meet strangers.
Right.
And I think, for me at least, that is getting outside of my comfort zone and having the courage to connect with others when maybe I feel a little uncomfortable, because there's so much to learn about myself and others when I do that.
Absolutely. You never know. Just say hello and smile. It'll take you a long way.
Yeah, it's actually so easy when you do it like that. I know for me, oftentimes, when I see someone who I think is really interesting, I'll get in my head. I'll be like, what do I even say to that person? Versus just smiling and saying hi. That's so easy. So easy. What was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, math. Math was my favorite subject, and it still is. I just think that, and I look at business, I look at writing books, I look at everything as a mathematical system or an equation. I get excited about it. As you can see, like the nerd part is coming out of me, Mark, as you're looking at me like, oh my gosh, she's evolving into something else when we say math. Right. But I like it because it's cause and effect to me. To me, math is cause and effect. And that's based upon our decision making too as well. And so when I realized the decisions that I made in the past reflect the harvest that I received, and then it goes to math that goes with the same thing as planting a seed. And sometimes because you plant a seed in the ground doesn't mean that it's not growing. So it goes how it goes back to math is the equation. A plus B will always equal C. But it's up to you to decide what is A, what is B, and who told you that was A, but who told you that was B. And so then it goes back to start to really break it down to find the common variable in order to find the common denominator and always find a solution. And then you find what is A.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that. You mentioned common denominator, and
right.
That's something that is always true. That we're the common denominators in our own lives. So if the same thing happens over and over again, it's because of me. Right.
And then, but sometimes if you keep making it go over and over again, you don't know how. And I think that's what when we do listen to motivational stuff, is everybody tells us the what. Everybody tells us what this is, or what our problem is, or what the solution is. But I think the misconnect, or the misconnect to finding the solution, is that equal sign, the how to get A over here to C on the other side of the equal sign. And so I really like to teach people how to fish, and I really focus on the how. And I think we make the bad decisions over and over again. It's not because we want to, it's because we just don't know how to either break free or to overcome that, or to know how to make a good decision.
Thank you. Do you have any go-to rituals? And if so, what are they?
Yes. The first one is every morning I say my affirmations. That's the thing that brought me out, is when I met the stranger in the nail salon and she told me to speak to my mountains. Meaning that sometimes your mountains stack up so high, your problems stack up so high, they become your mountains. And she's the one who opened the door for affirmations. And one of them is, I have the power to create my own wealth. I forgive myself for everything that I've endured. I can, I will, I am, and then I actually become that. My nighttime ritual is this, and it's kind of funny, Mark. I actually self-hypnotize myself every single night.
Wow.
Right.
How do you do that?
YouTube is my friend. So it's this thing like we were testing out the sound and everything, right ear, left ear, and I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, but this is the decision-making part in the middle of your brain. But if you spitfire affirmations or positive things back and forth, that your brain has no time to decide if this is true. If so, it says you are powerful, you are powerful, you are powerful. It has no, even if you had low self-esteem, your brain has no time to really grasp that. It just grasps what is in your subconscious. So how I started off on that was, I said, well, if my brain tells my body to move, to speak, my motor skills, my nervous system, and when I go to sleep, my brain never dies, my subconscious is still alive, and my subconscious dictates what my consciousness does, which I spend most of my day in, right? Then maybe I can trick my brain. I said, I don't see it, but I'm going to trick my brain. I'm going to trick it to believing what is not and what is. And that might sound crazy, but I'm going to try it. And so the reason why I believed it to be true at the time was all of us as kids, we wet the bed. And all of us, while we were asleep, laying on our backs, we saw that toilet in the woods. We saw the porcelain man. The seat was up in the middle of the woods. And our brain believed it so much that it commanded our body to release. So I said, if this happens when I'm asleep, if I can tell my subconscious this, then when I'm awake, cause and effect, then this will happen. And that's exactly what I did. Hypnotizing myself at night, my ritual that I do, it helped me to imagine. So I imagined so intensely that my imagination became my reality. And then when I started imagining, it opened my eyes to the resources I had right in front of me all along. I always had a computer, always had internet access. I always had Google. I always had a brain to use if I was wise, And then I started little by little creating. And then eventually I became that. And when you ask me, what is the greatest thing right now? That I'm alive to see the harvest from the seeds that I planted 4 years ago. That's what I really appreciate it. So yeah, that's one of my rituals. It works for me. And I do it to my daughter too as well. Even learn another language, you know. And she now starts affirmations because I don't want her to wait until she finds herself in a dark place, or when she has her back against the wall, to start utilizing that she can speak her way out. And when you keep saying it over and over again, you can trick your mind and you'll actually believe it. And you're like, you know what? Yes, I'm the best in the world. And then people will start seeing that.
I love that. And for everyone out there who hasn't done anything like this before, it might seem a little weird or a little foreign, but
yeah,
even the first day, the first week, but it definitely works over a consistent amount of time. And I know for me personally that I always had great ambitions for myself. I knew I was capable of a lot, but I never knew where to get started. And one of the things that I would do, a self-imposed obstacle, was I'd want to get to the finish line immediately and not go through the harvest.
Right,
essentially,
right.
Planting the seeds. And even when I feel myself growing and making changes in my behavior, if I study new sales techniques, I feel like I have them, but oftentimes it takes 4, 6, 8 weeks, a couple months of practice before the harvest actually manifests. So I love that, and I like how you took us the whole way from the planting of the seeds to the harvest.
Right. Thank you for listening.
What are some of your favorite things, like activities, things that you collect?
Wow. You know what? Some of my favorite things is, one thing is music. That's the first thing. I like music. Helps me to escape, especially in the journey that I went through in the past. One of my next favorite things is kind of weird, probably, but notebooks. I have crazy notebooks. Even if I don't even need a notebook and I'm in the store, I will pick that thing up and like, oh my gosh, it has a D on it. Oh my gosh, it has this cool quote on it. I'm just gonna go ahead and pick it up. That's another one of my favorite things. And family, spending time with my family too as well. And another favorite thing is just serving people. Not necessarily making them happy, but helping them to experience the joy that I once did of breaking free makes me happy. It makes me so happy, and I feel that is fulfilling. So those are some of my favorite things, and of course my iPhone.
All this leads perfectly into my next question. What's the most memorable story someone has told you about the impact or influence you've had on them?
Oh, wow. It's hard to choose from. I would say when I was at the juvenile court system. And for those of you guys who are listening, I speak nationwide, preventing teenagers from incarceration. So I work hand in hand with the police department and the court system. And I was talking to a group of maybe 20 kids, 25 kids. Now keep in mind, these are kids that already been in jail. Tattoos on their arms crossed, body language was like, who is this lady and what can she tell us? Or whatnot. And I came in there with my nice dress and heels on, right? And so I started sharing my story about, my past and the decisions that I made at 17 years old, and how I was in that place too, and how I just wanted to fit in, and how I was trying to just look for myself. And, it just seemed like everything I was doing, nothing was right. As bad as I wanted, nothing was right. And I told these kids, I said, you know what? I truly believe that I went through this experience so no other teen has to feel that same pain. And at the end, as I was sharing my story and just connected with the kids, and now it's Q&A, and I said, hey guys, ask the question, I'm here to teach you the how. And at first nobody didn't want to raise their hand. I said, well, while I'm here, you better ask me. Don't wait until I leave. And the questions start popping up. And there was a kid in the back who I thought was the toughest young man ever. And somebody looking at him would be in fear. And he shot his hand up, and he says, Miss Lee, I really need help. And he says, I don't want to go to prison like my father. And he says, I don't want to go to prison like my brother. And he says, can you please help me on how to create income or education so this does not have to be my life, because I thank you for going through that and giving me my warning so I don't have to experience what my brother went through and what my father is now going through. And I just cried. His name is James. I will never forget the young man. He's one of my mentees. Now he publishes books, and instead of selling drugs, he sells books, which is hand in hand and a really good exchange, because it got him not to just read and to explore, but to be a writer and to express in a different way. And his friends that, you know, people would think as thugs or rough and tough or this is their life or less fortunate, he's now being able to pour into his friends, and he's able to create a legitimate income. And he has pride. He is proud of what he does, and that is the most inspiration. So if you're listening right now, I truly believe that what you might be going through is not for you. It may be for someone 4 years from now, because in that moment, Mark, 4 years ago, I wanted to give up, man. I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to give up. I was tired. I gave up. But then I think about young people like James. I think about the adults that I help overcome their pain. I think about like my friends like Amber and the joy. They're just so excited because they accomplished something that they wanted to do, and it's done. They finished what they started. And I said, I can't give up. Even on those days that I feel like, and I'm like, nobody's really listening to me. They're not getting it. I think about James, because you never know who might be depending on you to continue to persevere. So that's my inspiration. That's where I pull from. And I think, you know, throughout all the thank yous and all of the pats on the back and inspirational gratitudes and the motivations, they all mean the same. It's equivalent to James. However, that really resonated to me because I remember when I was 17 and I was asking for help on the how, and no one gave it to me. And just to be able to part that into him and to see the fruit of his labor. He did it, not me. It just takes me to a whole nother level. I don't want to get emotional and mess up my mascara. I came really nice for you, Mark. but that's
that's a beautiful and inspiring story.
Right.
What is something that you're afraid of?
Ooh. It's amazing that you asked that question, because I was just on the phone last night with my confidant, and I was feeling a little overwhelmed because when the harvest comes, man, or when that wave comes, it comes, and it's an abundance. It's a harvest of abundance. It's nothing bad. And, you know, I couldn't get mad because I called it. You know, I called it to me, I spoke it, I worked towards it, and it's here, it's present. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I'm scared. He said, no, not Desiree. You can't be afraid. I said, no, really, I do get scared sometimes. I'm afraid of not necessarily failure, but I'm afraid of success. And it's not afraid of success that I'm scared to fail. It's afraid of success that will I be able to handle it all? Because in what I do, I realize that these are real people. It's not a number. It's not a software. It's not a piece of paper. They're real people. So real people who are asking me, how do I publish a book and make money from it to provide for their family? If you ever been scared before, it's like having 15 employees and I'm the CEO. I have 15 employees and I'm the CEO, and I have to make sure this ship keeps running, because if they don't get their check, guess what happens? They either lose their house, their kids are depending on it, school is starting, you know, and everything else in between. And that is scary. It's one thing to worry about yourself, Mark, your rent and your mortgage and everything. But to have 15 people, and then also your audience, they're real people, real lives who matter to me. And I'm afraid of I want to make sure I have everything in place where I can handle it all and to give my best. So it's being afraid of succeeding, but like I told him, I'm biting that bullet by the horns, and I'm just gonna jump. Can we jump? Are we gonna jump together, Mark?
Yeah. You are very courageous. What's that little voice in your head been saying lately?
Oh my goodness. The little voice in my head has been saying so many different things. The main thing, it's saying that you can do it. The second thing, it's saying that you came too far to give up now. You came too far, been through too much stuff to just call it quits now. Like, you have to go all the way out with it now, you know? Like, you can't just stop here and think that you're at your level of success, because this was my aim. But you have to aim a little further. So it's saying, you know, just keep going. And you came too far to give up now. You came too far to give up now. And man, it's saying a lot, Mark. It's saying so many other different things. It's just like, you know, just to think, a few years ago, I was in a prison cell, man. I was on a hard concrete bed with women who have life sentences and have nothing to lose. And to go from, wow, I don't want to get emotional, but to go from...
Feel free to get emotional.
Where's the tissue, man? But no, just to go from this place for 4 years. I remember prayers I used to pray. Lord, get me out of this place. I learned my lesson. I remember, you know, people, rejection for 6 years, Mark. People telling me no. And so for me to ask Microsoft for them to be my venue sponsors and for them to say an easy yes, to believe in what it is that I'm doing, to open up the lives of the people, possibilities, it's so surreal. So this little voice is like, you know, not dreams come true, because I'm not dreaming, man. Ideas come true. They are tangible. And to go from that place of it was an idea at that prison cell to be here in the present, that I can touch it, I can feel it, I can hug it, I can embrace it, I can smell it, I can see it, I can taste it. It's so surreal to me, man. And so that can be a scary situation, but the voice in my head is telling me, you know, keep going, and you came too far to give up now.
The incredibly inspiring and one and only Desiree Lee. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your story is incredibly inspiring. How you've always had this drive in you, and have had some hurdles along the way, as you mentioned. And I definitely want to hear more about your story, and you know how you paved your own path to create this incredible empire here, supporting people and both creating a healthy path in their life, staying out of trouble, as well as supporting so many people in sharing their voice and their writing with the world. So everybody, the not so fire rapid fire round, but it was just so good that I wanted to keep going with that. But,
thank you.
Desiree is an author, she's a speaker, an entrepreneur, and philanthropist, and is supporting kids and just so many people around the world. And it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Amber Valdez, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, introduced us. And Desiree, I'm just so impressed with your conviction and your passion, just endless contribution.
Thank you
others.
So much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. So I want to get to know you a little bit better. And you mentioned a little bit about where you were 4 years ago and where you are today. So I'd love to invite you to give us a little bit more context about how you ended up in prison, as well as how you defied all odds and have become the successful entrepreneur, of the most motivational speaker, philanthropist that you are today.
Wow. Defying all the odds, Mark. Yeah. Well, I must say that I didn't just defy all odds, because I realized I did not do it by myself. As we walk along this path, there's strangers who are assigned to you during certain legs of the marathon. Like, just think about running that 5K race, and you have strangers giving you cups of water. You have strangers have this sign up cheering you on. And, there's a quote by Martin Luther King that I hold on to, is, if you can't fly, you run. And if you can't run, you walk. And if you can't walk, you crawl. But whatever you do, don't give up. And so at 17 years old, I had a 3.8 GPA, 2 basketball scholarships, on my way to college. Great relationship with both of my parents. Came from a divorced home. However, they did the best they could to raise me. Awesome parents. But for me, having those good grades, being a star basketball player was not enough for me. Going to church all the time was not enough for me. And I felt empty, like it was a void. I felt that I was too smart to hang out with the cool kids, and I was too athletic to be accepted by the smart kids. And so, wasn't really religious to fit in with the youth at the church. So I was trying to find that space. Anyhow, I got with the wrong crowd of kids to try to be cool. And 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I was incarcerated for 11 counts of armed robbery and 5 counts of aggravated assault. And I was facing 135 years in prison. Wow. On the night that I got caught, I thought my mom was the enemy, that she didn't want me to have fun. And for 2 weeks, we were on this robbing spree, and she was trying to get a hold of me and different things like that, different tactics and stuff. And I thought she was just against me. And I was driving. I was so oblivious to this. Never been in trouble. Never shoplifted a day in my life. And I'm on this freeway. And the cop car was behind me, but there were no lights. I passed the first exit ramp. Cops sitting there. 2 cop cars. No lights. I go past the next exit. I see 2 more cop cars sitting there waiting. No lights on. As I'm still driving, thinking that they're not after me. We're too good. They can't be after me. They did their formation. Helicopter is on our car, man. And, the light was around the front of my car. And I said, who are they after? They can't be after us. I thought we were too good to get caught. And next thing you know, the lights go off. We're in the middle of the freeway. Not on the side, not on the right. In the middle of the freeway at 17 years old. And guns were drawn at us, and they said, get out the car, get out the car. But, they didn't say it that way. So they pulled us out the car, and I'm sitting in the back seat of one car. My ex-boyfriend's sitting in the back seat of another. And, I'm thinking I'm Billy, tough. I'm thinking I'm tough and everything. And he turns around and he says, do you even know what you're getting locked up for? I said, yeah, I know what I'm getting locked up for. I said, my mom reported the car stolen. See, in those 2 weeks, my mom was trying everything to say to get me to just go home. And so he types in the tag number. He turns around to me and says, guess what? The car is not reported stolen. And it was in that moment that I realized, Mark, that my mom was not my enemy. I realized that she had my best interest in mind. And that's when I was drove to the precinct and I was charged. I spent 4 years in prison for that. That was the first time that I saw a favor in the court, because she said she couldn't give me probation, but I knew what I was doing the first time, the second time, the 11th time. So I always kind of drive home to teenagers that you may not get caught the first time. I didn't. Or the second or the third, I didn't. But you will eventually get caught. It'll catch up with you. My experience in prison was really interesting, because this time I couldn't lean on mommy. I couldn't lean on daddy. It was just me, myself, and God. It was just me and him. You have to think about those people you see on TV, and your roommates. Those are your roommates. And with that being said, it was scary. It was really scary that people will, do crazy stuff over some noodles or a stick of gum and guards and different things like that. So trying to survive was very, very interesting for me.
What were you telling yourself at the time?
You know what? I had to change my mindset. I want you to kind of, how a lion out of the wild in Africa, they're free to do whatever it is that they want to do. Then you cage them up and put them in the zoo. And then they're forced to conform. the fence is low enough for them to hop over that. They're powerful enough to overtake the person that's coming in and feeding them, but they're okay with being in that cage. So that's what my experience was, is that I had to have a prison mentality and start to be okay with being in prison, because the more I thought about outside, the more crazy and depressed I started to get, because I had no control to go out there and there was nothing I can do. And once I got out of prison, I thought my life was going to be a-okay. I learned my lesson. I thought I was about that life, but I'm not about that life, you know. It was kind of a little slang term that young people use these days. And it's like taking a lion that's been in the zoo for years, and then you say, okay, you can go back to Africa now. And he doesn't even know or remember how to hunt, because he was used to people bringing him his food. So he might just die out there because he doesn't know how to hunt or survive in the real world. And that's how my experience was when I got out of prison. For 6 years, I tried to hunt. I tried to get a job, but of course they said no. I tried to go to school for cosmetology, but you can't get your license because they do background checks. I tried to be a nurse. I tried to be a bus driver. I tried to work at Walmart. I tried to even work at McDonald's, but because my crime was so violent, everyone said no. I tried to be a waitress at a restaurant, and they said no, because in order for me to take the wine from the bar to the table, I had to have a liquor license. And they do background checks for those licenses. So what do you tell a person like me when everything is against the grain? And I couldn't even get an apartment, Mark, man, because they do background checks for apartments. So where was I supposed to stay? How am I supposed to get food? And you can't be on welfare or food stamps because they do background checks. So I started to understand why people commit a crime just to survive, and they go right back to prison. And nobody in prison wanted to go to prison. And what do you say to that person?
Yeah, I'm wondering, how do you stay positive? How do you have an optimistic attitude when people are constantly saying no due to a decision you made when you were 17?
Man, Mark, at that time, I just started accepting no. I started expecting no. I started being hard on myself. You know, I started saying, well, maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not this, that, and the other. And then it starts from society, and then it starts trickling down to your family. You need to get a job. You need to do this, the daunting things. And some husbands, it might be your wives who are telling you to get up off your butt. And it's not that you're not trying. It's not that you're sorry, or, you know, the wives, you know, your husband might say that he needs help around the house. And what do you say? So I gave up. That's in my moment, in my breakthrough for 6 years. I even tried businesses. They were successful, but they weren't consistent. And on this day, I went to the store, got some Excedrin pills, had the letter drawn out. Dark I was feeling inside. No one knew how much pain I was holding on into inside, and that was the day. My mom came upstairs and she said, you want to get your feet done? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? This will be the last moment she sees me. You know, I'm done with this life. Maybe in the next lifetime. You know, maybe, you know, am I being punished for something I did in my past life or something like that? I don't know. Until I sat next to a lady and she said hello to me. She smiled at me. She started telling me about her holistic business. But I had such an attitude, and I was so hurt that I didn't want to hear what she had to say, you know, like whatever. And so she invited me out for tea the next day, and I said, you know, why not? I tried prayer, I tried church, I tried this, I tried that. Nothing worked. Let me just go ahead and give it a try. So that hello ruined my suicidal plans that night. You know, it ruined it, because the next day, you know, my father always says, be on time and do what you say you're going to do. The two things that I hold dear to my heart. And so I told her I was coming, so I had to be there. And I had a pity party. I poured it on to her. She's a stranger. Woe is me. Excuse me. I'm tired of this, and the system this and the government this, and it's all a setup, and how do they expect me to live? And she sat there looking at me like you're looking at me, Mark, with, yeah, nodding her head, smiling at me. And I said, what's wrong with this lady? I'm telling her that what I'm going through, and I see no way out. And in so many words, I didn't tell her that I wanted to commit suicide last night, but in so many words, I was telling her that I wanted to commit suicide and save me. She turns around and pulls out in a purse a small jar of mustard seeds, Mark. Mustard seeds, and it's a biblical term that people use. Faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. She tells me to hold out my hand, and she pours them in my hand. She says, you know what these are? And I'm like, yeah, I know what these are. I've been in church all my life. I didn't come here for you to preach to me. Faith is a mustard seed, move mountains, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no. She said, you see, that tiny mustard seed, if you speak, open up your mouth, Desiree. See, you've been speaking to this mountain and asking it to stay. You need to open up your mouth and ask it to move. I'm so mad because she didn't give me a job. She didn't give me resources. She gave me some freaking seeds, man. And I'm like, did she not understand what I'm coming? I'm like, did this lady just pull out some seeds? So being upset with her, I picked up the seed in my hand and I said, this is all the faith I have left. Did she not hear that I'm dying here? And she smiled at me. She said, that's all the faith you need. And I looked at her and I said, this is all I have left. And she said, that's all you need. She said, God doesn't put things in the ground, only puts things in the ground that are dead. You bury things that are dead. But God puts things in the ground with the expectation for it to grow. And she's the one that told me, just because your seeds are in the ground does not mean you're not growing. It has to, some things